The snow had started falling just after 9 that morning. By 11, Manhattan looked like a Christmas postcard. White flakes drifted past the windows of luxury boutiques. Children pressed their hands against restaurant glass, staring at decorated trees and gingerbread displays. Carols played from speakers along Fifth Avenue, mixing with the sound of traffic and distant laughter. Inside a black Mercedes Maybach, 36-year-old billionaire, Ethan Whitmore adjusted the cuff of his navy suit and glanced at the diamond ring on his finger. Today was supposed to be perfect. He was taking his fiancée, Madison Reed, to an exclusive Christmas lunch at the Whitmore family's private club. After lunch, he planned to take her to Central Park. Then, at sunset, he was going to give her a small velvet box. Inside was a key, not to a car, not to another luxury apartment. It was the key to a lakeside house in Vermont, a house he had secretly purchased because Madison had once told him she dreamed of spending Christmas somewhere quiet, surrounded by snow. Ethan had remembered. He always remembered the things Madison said. At least that's what he believed. "You're quiet," Madison said from the passenger seat. Ethan smiled. "I'm just thinking. About me? Always." Madison laughed and leaned toward him. "You've been strangely romantic lately." Ethan reached over and took her hand. "Maybe I'm trying to make up for being too serious." "You don't have to. I know." He kissed her fingers. Then he looked through the windshield, and everything changed. The Mercedes was stopped at a red light near a busy intersection. Across the street was a bus stop. A woman stood beneath a clear plastic shelter. She wore an old camel-colored coat that was too thin for the weather. A knitted scarf wrapped around her neck. Snow had gathered in her dark curly hair. Beside her stood 2 little girls. Twins. They were perhaps 4 years old. Both wore pale pink winter coats, matching white hats and tiny boots. One girl held the woman's left hand. The other held her right. The woman was trying to smile at them while rubbing, their cold fingers between her palms. Ethan stopped breathing. He knew that face. Even after 5 years, even after all the nights he had tried to forget it, even after telling himself he no longer cared. He knew her. Lena Carter, his former fiancée, the woman he had once planned to marry, the woman who had disappeared from his life 5 years ago. The woman everyone had told him had abandoned him. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. "Lena." Madison looked at him. "What?" He didn't answer. His eyes remained fixed on the bus stop. Lena lifted one of the little girls into her arms. The child buried her face against her mother's neck. Ethan stared. Then his eyes moved to the second little girl. She was looking directly at the Mercedes, and something about her face made Ethan's stomach drop. The same dark eyes, the same small dimple on her left cheek, the same expression he had seen in his own childhood photographs. Ethan whispered the words without realizing he had spoken them. "Those are my daughters." Madison froze. "What did you just say?" The traffic light turned green. The driver began moving. "Stop the car." "Ethan? Stop the car!" The driver slammed on the brakes. Ethan opened the door and stepped into the snow. Madison followed him. "Ethan, what is happening?" But he was already crossing the street. "Lena!" The woman at the bus stop turned. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither moved. Lena's face went completely pale. The little girl in her arms looked at Ethan. Then Lena whispered, "Oh, God." Ethan stopped several feet away. His voice trembled. "Lena?" She pulled the girls closer. "Please." "Are they mine?" Lena looked down. She couldn't answer. Ethan stepped closer. "Are they my daughters?" A bus approached in the distance. Lena's eyes filled with tears. Finally, she whispered, "Yes." Ethan's world went silent. He looked at the 2 little girls, his daughters. 5 years? 5 birthdays? 5 Christmas mornings. 5 years of missed first words, first steps, scraped knees, bedtime stories, and tiny hands reaching for someone who had never come. 5 years he could never get back. Ethan swallowed hard. "Why didn't you tell me?" Lena's lips trembled. "Because you never gave me the chance. I searched for you." "No." "I called you?" "You called once. I sent people to find you. After your father threatened me." Ethan stared at her. What? Lena shook her head. Not here. Then where? She looked at Madison standing behind him. Her eyes dropped to the engagement ring. I see you've moved on. Ethan followed her gaze. Then he looked back at Lena. That's not the question. Lena's voice cracked. It was never supposed to be like this. One of the little girls tugged her coat. Mommy, who's that man? Lena closed her eyes. Ethan's heart broke. He crouched down slowly. I'm Ethan. The girl stared at him. Are you my daddy? Ethan couldn't speak. He looked at Lena. She nodded once. The little girl's face brightened. You are? Ethan's eyes filled with tears. Yes. The child smiled. And that one smile destroyed 5 years of anger. Ethan reached out. But before he could touch her, Lena stepped backward. Don't. He froze. Why? Because you can't walk back into their lives for one afternoon and disappear again. I won't. You don't know that. I know exactly what I'm saying. No, Ethan. She shook her head. You don't know what it took to keep them safe. What happened? Lena looked toward the approaching bus. I'll tell you everything. Then she added quietly, but not on the street. 5 years earlier, Ethan and Lena had been madly in love. Ethan was already wealthy, but he wasn't the cold businessman people later believed him to be. With Lena, he laughed. He cooked terrible pasta. He danced badly in their apartment. He bought cheap flowers from street vendors because Lena preferred them to expensive arrangements. They had planned a simple wedding. Nothing extravagant. Just family and close friends. Then Lena became pregnant. They were terrified and incredibly happy. Ethan wanted to tell everyone. Lena wanted to wait until after her first doctor's appointment. But before they could announce anything, Ethan's father found out. Richard Whitmore was a powerful man. He had built the Whitmore empire from the ground up and believed his son had one responsibility: protect the family name. Lena wasn't wealthy. She wasn't connected. She wasn't appropriate, according to Richard. One evening, Richard summoned Lena to his office. He placed a check on the table. $5 million. Lena stared at it. I don't understand. You will leave Ethan. No. You will tell him you never loved him. No. Richard leaned back. If you refuse, I'll destroy his future. Lena stood. I don't believe you. Richard smiled. Then you're more foolish than I thought. He showed her photographs. Ethan leaving his office. Ethan meeting investors. Ethan's younger sister leaving school. Then he showed her documents. Debt agreements. Private contracts. Threats hidden inside legal language. Richard had enough power to ruin Ethan's career before it even began. But Lena still refused. Until Richard said something that broke her. If Ethan chooses you, I'll make sure your unborn child never has a peaceful life. Lena went home terrified. She told Ethan she was leaving. He begged. She cried. He asked what he had done. She couldn't tell him. Because Richard had warned her that if she revealed the truth, Ethan's family would know where she was. The next morning, Lena disappeared. She moved to another state. She changed her phone number. She worked 2 jobs. And 3 months later, she gave birth to twin girls. Emma and Olivia. Lena raised them alone. She never accepted Richard's money. She never told Ethan about the girls. Not because she wanted to punish him, because she believed she was protecting him. But Ethan never knew any of that. All he knew was that the woman he loved had vanished. He spent years believing she had chosen another life. And Lena spent years believing he had eventually forgotten her. Neither knew they were both wrong. Back on the snowy Manhattan street, Ethan stood staring at his daughters. Where do you live? He asked. Lena hesitated. Brooklyn. Take me there. No. Lena. You have a fiancé. Ethan looked at Madison. For the first time all morning, he saw her differently. Madison had been staring at Lena, then at the girls, then at Ethan. She slowly removed the engagement ring. Ethan? He looked at her. I think you need to go. He shook his head. Madison. Don't. She placed the ring in his palm. I don't want to be the woman standing between a father and his children. Ethan's eyes softened. I'm sorry. I know. She looked at Lena. I don't know what happened between you two. Lena said nothing. Madison continued, "But whatever it was, these girls deserve to know their father." Then she walked back toward the Mercedes. Ethan watched her leave. He had expected anger. Instead, she gave him grace. And somehow that hurt even more. That evening, Ethan sat at Lena's tiny kitchen table. The apartment was small. 2 bedrooms. Old furniture. A refrigerator that hummed loudly. Crayon drawings covered one wall. Christmas lights hung around the window. On the table sat 2 mugs of hot chocolate. Emma sat across from Ethan. Olivia sat beside him. They were fascinated by his watch. "Is it real gold?" Emma asked. Ethan smiled. "Yes." "How much?" Lena laughed from the kitchen. "Emma! What? You don't ask people how much their things cost. But Daddy is rich." Ethan looked at Lena. She froze. "You told them?" "They know what you are." "What am I?" Olivia answered innocently. "A daddy." Ethan looked down. His eyes filled with tears. He turned away so the girls wouldn't see. Lena noticed. She came over quietly. "You okay?" He nodded. "No." She sat beside him. "I missed everything." "I know. I should have been here." "I know. Why didn't you tell me?" Lena stared at the Christmas lights. "Because I thought your father would hurt you." Ethan's face hardened. "My father?" She nodded. "He threatened you." "He threatened everyone." Ethan stood. "I'll deal with him." "No." "Lena, this is my family." "They're my family, too. And I'm their father." "I know." "Then let me be one." Lena looked at him. "What does that mean?" "It means I want to know their favorite cartoons." Emma shouted from the living room. "Princesses!" Olivia yelled. "Dinosaurs!" Ethan laughed. "Apparently I have some homework." Lena smiled despite herself. "Yes. And I want to know what they eat." "Emma likes pancakes." "Olivia?" "Mac and cheese." "Favorite colors?" "Pink and purple." "Favorite bedtime story?" Lena looked at him. "That one you'll have to learn yourself." Ethan nodded. "Okay." For the first time in 5 years, Lena believed maybe everything wasn't lost. The next morning, Ethan went to Whitmore headquarters. Richard was waiting. "I heard you found her." Ethan closed the office door. "You knew." Richard didn't answer. "You knew about Lena." Silence. "You knew about my daughters." Richard finally looked up. "I knew she was pregnant." Ethan's hands clenched. "You destroyed my family." "I protected you." "You destroyed 5 years of my children's lives." Richard stood. "You were 29. You had just taken over the company. You were vulnerable. I was in love. You were distracted." "They are my children." Richard's expression hardened. "And what happens now?" Ethan stared at him. "Now I become their father?" Richard laughed bitterly. "You think money fixes everything?" "No." Ethan stepped closer. "But it can expose the truth." Richard's face changed. "What are you talking about?" "I found the documents." Richard went silent. Ethan placed copies of the old agreements on the desk. "Your signatures." Richard's eyes narrowed. "You went through my files." "I went through my past." Richard sat down. For the first time, Ethan saw fear in his father's eyes. "You blackmailed her." Richard said nothing. "You threatened my career." "Nothing." "You threatened her unborn children." Richard whispered. "I was trying to protect the family." Ethan shook his head. "You weren't protecting the family." He picked up the documents. "You were protecting your control over it." But Ethan didn't expose his father immediately. Instead, he went to Lena. He told her everything. She cried. Not because she was angry, because she finally understood that Ethan had never abandoned her. They had both been victims of the same person. Still, rebuilding trust wasn't easy. Love could survive distance. But trust needed time. Ethan didn't move into Lena's apartment. He didn't shower her with expensive gifts. He didn't try to buy forgiveness. Instead, he showed up. Every morning. He took the girls to school. He learned how to braid hair. He learned that Olivia hated peas. He learned that Emma couldn't sleep without her stuffed rabbit. He learned how to make pancakes shaped like stars. The first time he burned them, the twins laughed for 10 minutes. Ethan laughed too. He had never been happier. Then came Christmas Eve. The girls were decorating a small tree. Ethan sat on the floor untangling lights. Lena watched from the doorway. "You know," she said, "you're getting better." "At lights?" "At being here." Ethan looked up. "I don't want to be anywhere else." Lena smiled. Then there was a knock. Richard stood outside. Lena stiffened. Ethan walked to the door. His father held a small box. "I came to apologize." Ethan said nothing. Richard looked past him. "I know I have no right." "No, I was wrong." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You can't undo 5 years." "I know." "You can't give me back their first steps." "I know." "You can't give Lena back the nights she cried alone." Richard's eyes filled with tears. "I know." For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Emma appeared. "Grandpa?" Richard looked at her. His face crumbled. He had never met his granddaughters. Not officially. He knelt. "Hello?" Emma smiled. "Do you like Christmas?" Richard nodded. "I do now." Olivia ran over. "Do you have presents?" Richard laughed through his tears. "Yes." She grabbed his hand. "Come inside." Richard looked at Ethan. Ethan stepped aside. "Come in." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning. A year later, the Whitmore family Christmas looked completely different. There was no luxury ballroom. No press. No private club. Just a house in Vermont covered in snow. The same house Ethan had bought for Madison. Except Madison never lived there. Ethan eventually returned the ring and ended their relationship respectfully. She moved to California and started a nonprofit helping single mothers. They remained friends. Lena and Ethan didn't rush into marriage. They spent a year rebuilding their relationship. Slowly. Honestly. Without secrets. On Christmas morning, Emma and Olivia ran downstairs screaming. "Daddy!" Ethan came running. They jumped into his arms. Lena stood at the bottom of the stairs, smiling. Ethan looked at her. "You okay?" She nodded. "I'm happy." He smiled. "So am I." Emma tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, open your present." Ethan sat beside the tree. The gift was wrapped in purple paper. Inside was a framed drawing. 4 stick figures. Emma, Olivia, Lena, and Ethan. At the top, written in crooked letters, were the words, "Our family." Ethan stared at it. His eyes filled with tears. Lena sat beside him. "You like it?" He nodded. "It's the best thing anyone has ever given me." Emma frowned. "But it's just a picture." Ethan laughed. "No." He hugged both girls. "It's everything." Years later, people would still talk about the billionaire who saw his former fiancée standing at a bus stop with twins. Some called it fate. Some called it coincidence. But Ethan knew better. It wasn't the bus stop that changed his life. It was the moment he stopped believing the story he had been told. He had spent years thinking he had lost the woman he loved. He didn't realize he had also lost 2 daughters he had never even known existed. And when the truth finally appeared in front of him on a snowy Christmas morning, he discovered something money could never buy. A second chance. Not a second chance at wealth. Not a second chance at business. A second chance at fatherhood. A second chance at love. And a second chance for 2 little girls to finally hear the words they had, unknowingly, been waiting for. "Daddy is here." Sometimes life doesn't give us the family we planned for. Sometimes it takes away the people we love. Sometimes the truth arrives years too late. But if we're brave enough to open the door when it finally knocks, we may discover that what we thought was the end was actually the beginning. If this story touched your heart, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes that love deserves a second chance.